Hey guys, welcome back to the Weisz Photographer Podcast. You are listening to episode number 24. Today we have Stephanie Thacker on the episode today. She is the founder and CEO of Steadfast Bookkeeping Company. After 7 years in small businesses and corporate, Stephanie started Steadfast Bookkeeping in 2011 because of her passion for helping business owners achieve their dreams. Growing up in a family of entrepreneurs, as well as running a few businesses herself, she realized that bookkeeper is just one of the many hats that business leaders wear today. Since then, she's worked with small businesses to emphasize the importance of bookkeeping, maximizing profits, and creating budgets. She generally just provides peace of mind for business finances in every area. When she's not crunching the numbers, she enjoys spending time with her husband of 13 years and their 5-year-old daughter. You can find them on the local beaches down in Florida or visiting Disney World. Together, her and her husband serve as a production ministry in their local church. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dig right on into this episode.
Welcome to the Weisz Photographer Podcast with your host, Chelsy Weisz. Each week, Chelsy is bringing you the best tips and tricks to help you create a joyful, profitable, more purpose-filled photography business. Chelsy is a wife and mom of 2 who has built a thriving photography business in her tiny hometown in western North Dakota. Without further ado, here's your host, Chelsy Weisz.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Stephanie Thacker from Steadfast Bookkeeping on. So Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You were saying earlier that you're in Florida, right?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Well, I would love if you could kind of give us just a brief introduction of like who you are and what you do and kind of how your career has evolved.
Yeah, sure. So I am the CEO and founder of Steadfast Bookkeeping Company, and Steadfast is a virtual cloud accounting firm, and we offer all kinds of accounting services, mainly bookkeeping and tax services to small businesses all across the U.S. And so, our main goal is just really to help small businesses in any, area of their finances and help simplify, streamline, and kind of take that one hat away from business owners.
Oh, I love it. So can you kind of explain the difference between what accounting is and what bookkeeping is? Because there's a difference, right?
Accounting is more of like a general term, I would say, of if you're looking at it in terms of business finances, at least, or looking at it in terms of a business, accounting would have to do with, all of your numbers and your finances. Bookkeeping is specifically going to be the portion of accounting that's more of the ongoing, record keeping of your business. So bookkeeping is basically just, a process of keeping track of the money that's flowing in and out of your business. So what's probably more of a difference that, is maybe confusing sometimes is you hear the term bookkeeper and accountant. Mm-hmm. So when you hear accountant, most of the time you're probably hearing that, and it's probably referring to a CPA, a certified public accountant, who is typically someone who is preparing tax returns and things like that. Whereas a bookkeeper is going to be the person that's more in the day-to-day books and actual record keeping, for the business finances. So hopefully that helps kind of
thank you for that. Clearing that up. So I think when especially photographers start a business or wanting to start in a photography business, we tend to really focus on the picture taking and that kind of thing. But in order to really have a healthy business, like an actual business that is going to last more than 6 months or a year and is legally set up, there's a lot of different tools and stuff that we can use to kind of track all of our bookkeeping and the money side of our business. Are there any tools that you suggest for mainly creative entrepreneurs when it comes to bookkeeping, the day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of QuickBooks Online. That's what we use specifically here at Steadfast for all of our clients. And really because it can go from just, a solopreneur, really, someone who's just the only person in their business, so if you're a photography business and it's just you right now, you can still use QuickBooks Online, start with the lowest subscription, but have a way to really have all of your numbers in one place. And then it works up to multi-million-dollar businesses with hundreds of employees. So it can really grow with you. You can use it, the very simple version of it. You can, use it if you have to collect sales tax, if you need to run payroll. And I think it's pretty user friendly. It's come a really long ways. It's a lot different than QuickBooks Desktop, that we used to know. So QuickBooks Online is a really great tool. I know for photographers, there's, a lot of softwares out there that you can use that you're using maybe for contracts or communication. So whether it's a HoneyBook or Dubsado, 17 Hats, something like that, a lot of those do have something in there called bookkeeping. What I recommend is keep using a software like that for all of the other aspects of your business. Use that, as your CRM or however you're using it, but then have a separate software that's really just your finances, where you can connect your bank and really run a true profit and loss report and allow your CPA to do journal entries if they need to at tax time, things like that. And QuickBooks Online is really one of those that does that. There's a lot of softwares out there for bookkeeping, but I found that one is just, it's easy to access. Like I said, it can grow with you. It has everything that you need. And then if you are having somebody, a CPA do your taxes, QuickBooks is typically going to be that universal language for CPAs. They're going to know how to use it, exactly what to tell you, where to go to get the reports. They might even be able to log in on their own. And so that's why really I'm such a huge fan. And that would really be my number one recommendation.
Oh, I love it. I use HoneyBook as well. And HoneyBook now syncs with QuickBooks, which is really handy to be able to use the actual business, money side software and the client relation ones. And I really love that they sync together. So a big supporter of using both of those myself. So a little bit about your business. You are based in Florida and you serve clients across the country, right? You're saying?
Right.
So if someone is looking at possibly hiring a bookkeeper, is there ever a point where you're too small to hire a bookkeeper? Or is that something that you can look at hiring pretty soon out of the gate when starting a business?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I always say, it's really dependent on each individual business. So, we've had people come to us before that say, I'm just starting my business. I'm just, whether I'm still working a full-time job or I'm quitting my full-time job and I'm going all in. And they know from day one that they don't ever want to be the one handling the bookkeeping. Like they'll say, I know I've tried to use QuickBooks before, or that it just stresses me out. So there certainly are some people that just know that from day one, and they know that it's going to be a personal investment really to begin with until they start making revenue. So I don't know that it's ever that you're too small, but I would say, really think individually, is it something that you feel confident in doing? Are you actually doing it, and not just only going in at tax time or once a year? And if not, maybe that's the time to think about, okay, who can do this for me? And then really, explore your options and see, for the size of your business at that time, what works best for you? Is it, some type of virtual firm? Is it a local CPA that has a bookkeeper in their office that can help you? Is it maybe your VA does it and, they know how to do bookkeeping? So I would really explore those different price options for you. And that might change down the road. If you're just starting out and you're small, it obviously probably the most budget friendly option, it would be the way I would suggest going. And then if you're growing, years down the road, then maybe you can go to that bigger firm or, someone who can give you more detail and do a little more in-depth work. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily that a business is too small, but I would really say just look at your budget, look at what you're, kind of willing to pay for, especially in the beginning. I mean, I definitely think bookkeeping should be a part of your business from day one. So if you know that you are not going to be the one to do that as a business owner, then it probably is good to go ahead and seek someone else to do that for you.
Oh, I love that. So we're kind of in the middle of tax season right now. And we had filed our taxes before all this Corona stuff hit, which is usually we're pushing the limit on it and we shouldn't do that. But we got ahead of things this year. So I'm excited that we already got ours done. But what are some things that you see that kind of tax deductions that get overlooked frequently for creative entrepreneurs, mainly photographers if you work with many at all, but Was there any that you kind of would make sure that you're definitely checking if people are doing their own taxes or preparing them to go to a CPA or something along those lines?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, specifically for photographers, sometimes I think, especially when a photographer is starting out, maybe they've already had a camera that, I don't know. We've seen things where it's like, well, my very first camera, I bought it on Craigslist and it was $400 and I just paid money out of my own pocket for it. That's okay. You still want to let your CPA know that. You still can deduct that as a business expense. That's the nature of business. There's a lot of times that in the beginning, money is coming out of your personal pocket to kind of fund your business to get started. And so I would say, don't forget about those equipment purchases, whatever that is, cameras, tripods, anything like that. If it was paid out of personal funds, and now you're converting it to 100% business use because you're making this a business, don't forget about that. Certainly let your CPA know. Just because it's not in your business checking account or you didn't pay for it from business funds, it's okay. It can still be deducted. So that's something that, sometimes we kind of will prompt questions and just make sure, hey, what did you pay for out of your personal account this year that maybe you forgot about? And there are usually things that people will find, oh yeah, I forgot, because the business didn't have enough. So I put that on a personal credit card and I've just been paying it off over the last few months, things like that. It's okay. We can do, the entries behind the scenes to ensure that that gets counted for your business. And then another thing is, any subscriptions that you're paying for, if it's photo editing software, if it's to be in some type of mastermind, if you're going to a conference, don't forget that those things are business expenses. So again, whether they're coming out of business funds or you had to pay for them, on a personal card or personal account, don't forget that those are valid business expenses, especially conferences and online courses, mastermind groups, things like that. You're doing that to better your business. You're doing that to learn how to manage your business better. So those are definitely 100% tax deductible. So you don't want to forget about those.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I didn't know about the gear beforehand that you had purchased personally beforehand, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, definitely mention it to your CPA. And, it might be different if it's something that's 15 years old and you can't find a receipt. You don't really remember how much you paid for it. But, if it's something that you purchased personally and you can say, here's the receipt, I paid for it out of my personal account. Now it's 100% business use. There's definitely something that we can usually do there.
We'll get right back to the podcast, but first, the sponsor for this episode, Trello for Photography. Trello for Photography is an online course that walks you through how to get the most out of Trello to organize your client workflows, keep up with your blogging schedule, and ensure that you never forget what day you're in charge of snacks for the soccer team. No matter if you're a portrait photographer, wedding photographer, offer in-person sales, or a digital only, Trello for Photography has a workflow board for you. Having an amazing workflow process that you can replicate over and over is the key to creating raging fans who are singing your name anytime someone's looking for a photographer. Inside Trello for Photography, you'll gain access to my favorite boards, including boards called the 30,000-foot view, Step into my office, and my most used board, My Week. The My Week board actually is where you're going to plan everything that needs to get done each and every day of the week. It's seriously the only way I'm able to keep up with my business, kids, and the housework. You'll gain access to videos walking you through how to use each and every board. Best of all, you get complete lifetime access to boards and updates. Just copy them to your account and start saving time and actually getting things done. Never question whether or not you ordered that album for that wedding client or spend hours searching for a PIN number for a gallery that someone forgot. Best of news, Trello for Photography is just $29. You spend more than that on a single manicure. To find out more and enroll, head over to TrelloForPhotography.com. That's TRELLOFOR photography.com. So what advice do you have for new business owners who are really wanting to be financially healthy for the long run? Is there any advice that you have? I don't know, people who are in like that first year to maybe year and a half of business?
Yeah, the biggest thing I can say is really know your numbers. So again, that's going to require some type of bookkeeping. If it's not a software, at least use a spreadsheet or something in the beginning. track and see, how much are you actually spending? How much are you making? So if you're a photographer, I think it's sometimes easy to just use your bank account and try to kind of gauge your business off of your bank account. But that's not really giving you a true picture of your numbers. You really want to look at, okay, I charged X amount of dollars for this session. I spent this much in supplies, and then kind of, get your profit and then look at, okay, how many hours did I spend, shooting, maybe helping them pick out outfits, maybe all the editing. Did I outsource the editing? All of that kind of stuff. Really look at it and know, okay, well, this is what I actually made. If it comes down to it and you're like, well, that comes out to $9 an hour for all the time that I put into it, that's a good indicator to raise your prices. Whereas your bank account is not going to tell you any of that. Your bank account's only going to tell you the amount of money in there. We hear it time and time again where people say, well, I was able to just keep paying myself and I would just take some draws here and there and it seemed okay. But now when I really do the math, now that I see it, I see that I'm not really making much. Or we hear it the other way around of, I feel like I do pretty well. I see this money coming in and then I just see it going out and I just feel like there's never any money left in the account. There's never any money to pay myself. So, it's hard to really look at your bank account and see where is that going. If you're doing some type of bookkeeping, you can easily run reports and see what expenses are you paying for, whether they're monthly or one time for a session or an event. So just really know your numbers. It's going to start with bookkeeping. So do something to track that. And then the second piece of advice I would give is, create a budget that, kind of back it up to your personal expenses. If this is something that you're doing because you need a certain amount of income, take that number and say, especially if you're leaving a job or if you're, going from full-time to part-time at a job and this is your supplement to make up for that, how much money were you making at that job? How much do you need your business to bring in now to, accommodate those same funds that you used to make? If it's more of just a side thing, then you can still put an amount on it and say, I'd really like to be able to pay myself X amount of dollars per month. What does that equate to? How many sessions do I need to book? And then how much can I spend? And I think that'll really help create a budget that you can stick to. And I'd say create a budget that you're able to stick to on a monthly basis, no matter if it's high season or low season. You don't want to get to a point where you have so many expenses that in low season, you're struggling so bad that you can't even pay yourself. So, really look at that, take an average over time and say, okay, how much can I really pay myself? How much should I be spending in subscriptions? How many conferences should I be going to? How many, should I be outsourcing my editing? All of those things. That all kind of plays into just knowing your numbers, really know the finances of your business so that you can make decisions based on the facts of your finances and not just, guessing based on what's in your bank account.
Oh, awesome. That is great advice for sure. I know with a lot of my coaching clients, I've had them actually break out how much each session costs them, between your time that you're spending editing and any supplies. And I know it's always eye opener, especially for new photographers that are like, I am making $3 an hour right now.
Exactly.
And it's not sustainable. And
it's not sustainable.
I mean, sometimes it speeds up, like your workflow speeds up and you don't have to spend as much. So maybe you are making a little bit more in like a couple months when you speed up your workflow. But if you don't raise those prices, it's not going to work out in the long run.
Right. Always value your time for sure. And that's, like you said, it's an eye opener to really break down those numbers when you look at it. Oh, I spent, this much time at the event, this much time editing, this much time with the client. And then it's like, oh, well, I could just, I could be working anywhere for more than $3 an hour or $5 or $9. We've seen all kinds of numbers too.
Yeah.
So it's good to know for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I liked what you said about like understanding how you want to run your business, if you want it to be a full-time thing, or if you do want it to be more of a side gig that's kind of supplementing your maybe 9 to 5, because that is always an option. I think sometimes it's other photography educators will be like, well, kind of treating it all like you're going to replace that 9 to 5 completely, where in reality, I think there are a lot of people that this is just a side gig, and it's okay for it to be just a side gig, but you still need to treat it like a business. And that makes a lot of sense to have that budget of, you know, this is how much I would like to bring into my household income. Maybe it doesn't need to be millions of dollars a year, but, you know, maybe it is just an extra $1,000 a month or something like that. And knowing those numbers was definitely going to help you set your prices. And
it's still good to know, because, you know, even if it is a side gig and it's just, you know, supplemental income, again, just think of your time, you know, so especially if you're working a 40-hour job and then doing this on the weekends, you know, what does it come down to? If it comes down that you're only making a few dollars an hour, then it's not worth it. So you have to really make sure that, you know, it's worth it. And like I said, value yourself and value your time, and know that, you know, it means something, because long term, it won't be sustainable. There'll be a point where you burn out essentially and realize, I can't keep doing it. You know, I can't keep doing these events every weekend and only ending up bringing in this much money to supplement. It won't be worth it in the end.
Yeah, it's not really supplementing at that point, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the interview today. Where can everyone find you online if they want to reach out to you or just go internet stalk you?
Yeah. So our website is steadfastbookkeeping.com. And then you can also find us on Instagram at Steadfast Bookkeeping Co. And we're active there and always happy to answer any questions, and just make sure you say hi. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I have one last question for you. And this is a question that I asked all of my guests. We have a greenhouse in our backyard and plants. I've kind of become the crazy plant lady in the last few days, or not few days, in the last few years. But if you could be a plant, what plant would you pick and why?
Yeah, that's a good one. I am like a person who has a black thumb, not a green thumb. But I have found that I can, you know, keep succulents alive because they need no care at all. Because I don't know many plants, because we don't have many, because they just die. I love succulents, so maybe I would be that. So I could just be, you know, easygoing. I feel like whether I have them in the sun or the shade, if I don't water them for 3 months, I look at them and they're still beautiful and they get bigger. And not that I would want to thrive off of being neglected, because I feel like that's how succulents are, but just like they're not needy, which is great. And that's my kind of plant.
Love it. Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We'll have links to all of Stephanie's websites and blog. She's got a really great blog as well, and her Instagram. You guys check that out in the show notes below. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week. Bye. All right, a huge thank you to Stephanie for coming on today's episode. You can find links to find Stephanie all over the internet in our show notes below. You can find her on Instagram or on her blog at steadfastbookkeepingco.com. Stephanie also has a free course, The Ultimate Guide to Bookkeeping for Online Entrepreneurs, which we will also have links for below, but you can find it on her website. Thank you guys so much for joining in this episode of the Wise Photographer Podcast. We will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wise Photographer Podcast. Dive into the show's notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.thewisephotographer.com. If you loved the show, share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in, you Wise Photographer, you.